Welcome to Slayerfest 98. I'm Kiersten White.
And I'm Ian Carlos Crawford. Hi, Kiersten.
Hi, Ian.
We're here to talk about Welcome to the Hellmouth and the Harvest 25th anniversary because we are very old. But I'm going to introduce our two wonderful guests. First up, we have staff writer for comicbook.com and co-host of Phase Zero and Hollywood Already Did It.
It's Jamie Jirak. Hello.
Hi, Jamie. And we also have one of my Twitter boyfriends and annoying homosexual lawyer.
I'm Doug Schlarman. Hi.
Hi, everyone. You both, I'm so glad you're both here. I'm making these, I'm not stressing about our 25th anniversary recordings, but I do want to try to have new people on, so y'all can tell us your Buffy origins. Jamie, do you want to give us your Buffy origin first?
Oh my gosh, I'd love to talk about my Buffy origin because I remember it so well. I was 11 years old. I was in 6th grade, and I saw a commercial for the season 6 premiere. And I had no idea what it was. But I was like, whoa, that looks dope. Somebody's getting resurrected. And there's some cool stuff happening in a graveyard. So I watched it and I was like, and I was changed forever. It did not take me long to get my hands on every episode. I remember watching the first season in my great aunt's house. At that time, DVDs were starting to come out. So I would, collected all the DVDs. And I think by the time the show ended, I had seen it all multiple times. But it was season 6. And then the beauty of that was by 8th grade was the 5th season of Angel, which is my favorite season of television. And every Thursday I would come into class and my science teacher and I would have a powwow and we would discuss the new episodes of Angel. I was very cool. and now it's still my favorite show. I've got a pretty cool Illyria tattoo. I've got a Mutant Enemy tattoo. I have plans for a Dark Willow tattoo, but the Illyria one hurts so bad that I've at that spot on the other side, I keep putting it off. But
God, yeah, and I can confirm it is fucking cool. Jamie DM'd it. That was like my favorite DM slide I've gotten was you just like showing me a picture of your Illyria tattoo. It's super detailed too.
Yeah, I was like, I can be on your podcast. I swear I have cred. Here's my cred.
Not that I ever asked for that. I don't want anyone to think I'm ever like vetting.
Of course not. Of course not.
But also, when you're like, I was 11 years old and I started watching season 6. I was like, oh, no.
I know. I am a little younger, but at least I can say I watched 2 of the seasons as they aired.
That's true.
I know. Yeah, that 8th grade comment. I was like, ugh.
I know.
No, mostly the mom in me was like, season 6 for an 11-year-old? But,
Also that.
I was an only child. No one was paying attention to what I was doing.
Jamie, I feel like that happens, right? Because my brother, I'm not an only child, but my brother is 8 years older than me. So it was like I was an only child. And yeah, like the shit I would watch, it's like, meh. It didn't really matter.
Yeah.
My parents at that point were like bad at monitoring. Doug, I would love to hear your Buffy origin, which is weird that I've never heard it before. So tell me.
Yeah, it's weird that we're talking about this with this episode because it sort of started, I had just started living with my dad, which I had not done before freshman year of high school started, and was going to like a new high school with kids that I didn't know who had all gone to middle school together. And a group of people that I desperately wanted to be friends with all watched together on Tuesdays. And it brought up to me like, oh, do you watch? And I just flat out lied and was like, yes, sure, of course, include me in your thing. And then I like started watching, I think it was season 5 with them, but then they used to show reruns on like FX or something at 6 a.m. and 7 a.m.
Yep.
So I would wake up early and watch the old episodes to try to catch up to gain some fluency with these kids that I wanted to be friends with. And then so I started watching in a really disjointed whatever was on FX while watching season 5, and then just ended up like backfilling from there.
That's wild, Doug, that you started that.
I bullshitted my way through and then ended up falling in love with it in the process.
Was it me? Was I that group of friends? Like,
no, there was like a definitive Willow and like a definitive Xander. And then I ended up like slotting into a very Anya position with that group of people.
So yeah, Jamie, I'm going to ask you first. What do you think about the show that like makes it still hold up?
Oh gosh, I think it's for me. I love teen stuff and I love vampire stuff, and it's the best of both of those. The writing is so good, all the characters are so good. It's just so rewatchable. Like when I told my boyfriend today that I was going to watch the first 2 episodes for the podcast. He's like, that's imprinted on your brain. You don't have to rewatch that today. I was like, yeah, but I want
to. Yeah, it's funny because I was thinking that I was like, oh, well, I'm rewatching for this, but I want to rewatch again before the live show this weekend. And I was like, I really don't need to because, yeah, like I feel like all of this shit is imprinted on our brains. And I will tell everyone, there were at least 2 episodes when we recorded the first season in my apartment in Brooklyn that I did not have time to rewatch, and I was still able to record and like keep up. It was like fine. Of course, I didn't like doing that, but like, yeah, because I've watched so many of these episodes, and there of course is like stuff that doesn't hold up, but I think overall it mostly does. Kiersten, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the humor, for the most part, aside from some very clunky jokes that don't play well anymore, the humor still hits well. It's still really well written, and the main actors are so good. Yeah. Even in this first episode, they're so good that my teens are super picky about what they'll watch, and they sat and watched the whole first episode with me, and they enjoyed it. And they don't watch content that's directed toward teens because they're snobs. But they enjoyed it. Like, it still plays well as an adult. It still plays well to teenagers. It's funny too.
Yeah, it's weird because watching this, especially since Kiersten and I just 2 weekends ago recorded for the finale, I was like, ooh, am I not going to think it holds up as much because the show does progress? But like, these characters are pretty much all there from the start, right? Mm-hmm. Which like, there's shows that I love that's not the case, where the characters aren't quite there. But like with Buffy, it feels like these characters were pretty much fully formed from the start, and it's their evolution that changes them, not like a writing decision to make the character different.
And you know what else I think this pilot episode arc really benefits from is the movie that they only sideways acknowledge, because they don't have to do an origin story. She already knows that she's the Slayer. She's already had experience with it. And so then they can give you like the barest minimum, like, oh, this is how the world works. But we don't have to go through her discovering how the world works. She already knows. And I think it helps so much.
And she already has feelings about it. I think what I was like sort of taken by, especially having listened to this podcast, promo for this podcast that I'm currently on, you guys talk about Chosen, the idea that it's already baked in, that she has these conflicted feelings about the power set that she has and her responsibility, like as it starts, and that it actually becomes sort of about her feelings regarding the responsibility rather than her like getting a superhero origin story, makes it interesting, I think, even now.
Yeah. Yes. I think that's a really good point, Doug, because like I will say, I don't know why. I don't know why, but I get really bored with a superhero origin story. I find them a little bit like, right? Okay, good. Jamie, I know that you like the superheroes are your like forte, so I was like, am I going to sound like an asshole?
I notoriously dislike origin stories. It's not my thing. I just like that's why the Buffy pilot's one of my favorite pilots, because it's like they just go right into it, and it's great. You don't have a season of learning how to slay vampires.
Right.
What if I'm strong? Like it's baked in that she's strong, and then we play around with that from the start.
Yeah, like Buffy, she's already confident. She just doesn't want to do it, right? Like she's already like, yes, I can do it. I don't want to be doing it, which I think is really nice. There's never a moment of like, I can't do this. It's just like, I can. I'm just would rather not. And like, same girl. I think. Yeah, it is a really good pilot. I think I often overlook it in the realm of like shows that I love and pilots that I love, but it is the characters, like I would say, even Cordelia, who is maybe slightly meaner than we get, but like that's her character development, I think, is like her becoming more nuanced, right?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that in terms of like how these characters. My favorite character arc in the whole Buffyverse is Wesley, but Cordelia is like up there because it was like I'm like, oh, I forget that she's such a bitch in the beginning, and and then she she saves the world a bunch in the end.
Yeah. Our queen.
It's weird, like every little character that sort of pops up in the first 2 episodes, it's sort of a delight. Like you see Harmony, and then rewatching, you think like, oh my God, the journey that we're going to go on with Harmony. You see Darla, and it's the journey we're going to go on with Darla. It's almost more of a treat rewatching after you've watched every episode of Buffy and Angel, because you get the flash forward for what all of these people are going to do.
Yeah. It's so weird. I was thinking how, like, we don't see Jonathan in the second episode, but like, I know we do eventually see him. Oh, he's in the pilot. I always forget the unaired pilot has Harmony and Jonathan in it, which is so weird because they're not in the first episode. But yeah, there's so much of that. And it's very weird that we come back to so many of these characters, but we never come back to Jesse, who was their best friend who dies at the end.
I love the story that they wanted to put Jesse in the opening credits.
Yes.
But they couldn't afford it, because I think that would have been fun. I think a fun little trick.
Yes. Yeah. Also, I just want to pause and say Eric Balfour, he is so handsome. And Doug, I don't know if you remember this. He did that like photo shoot where he was like half naked on a car for, I forget what magazine.
I recall. You don't have to remind me, you sweet, sweet boy.
I did note that he has like peak WB face of the era. Like
just quite the nose. Like, what a nose. I love it so much. I love his face.
Doug, I love that. I was like, is he gonna say something mean? But you're like, no, I love that nose.
Oh my God, he's so cute. I think he was in the like Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake with Jessica Biel, that I was like, oh, I love this face. I love looking at this face.
It is a good face. So we'll get into the episodes. Kiersten, tell me what you think about this opening, because I fucking love it.
I do. I love it. I love the breaking into the school, and they've got this, baby voice blonde girl in a school uniform, and she's nervous, and something bad is going to happen. And it plays with the same thing. Like the whole concept of Buffy is that reversal of expectations, right? Only in this case, the tiny, delicate blonde isn't the one who's fighting the monsters. The tiny, delicate blonde is the monster. I love it. I think it's a super smart setup. I think it's a great opening scene. And like, it was kind of a weird choice not to open with our main character, right? But it sets the tone of the show so well.
I was specifically going to ask you that, Kiersten, because as someone who has written, a few books, like it is a choice, right? But it works not to have Buffy in that opening scene.
Yeah. It establishes like the tone of the show. It establishes the town where, you go to take a cute girl to the high school to make out, you might die, which, probably is true of any high school. I think it was smart. And it kind of functions as like a prologue, which are controversial in writing, but that hint of a scene, and then you get to the real story. Like, I think it works really well.
It's like very classic horror too.
Yes. I was thinking I was thinking like, it's so funny how, especially in season 1, they do lean into the horror stuff, like more than they do in the later seasons. And like the music, and like, I mean, it doesn't hurt that it's extremely dark in every scene. But like, even this is like very, cause like, she kills him and she like turns around and has a monster face. And it's just like, I feel like it's so iconic and so good. And like you said, Kiersten, it sets the tone, but it in a different way, right? Because it is like showing you, oh, you underestimate this small blonde girl, but like in this case, it's not the hero, it's the villain, and she eats this man. Doug, what do you think of this opening?
Oh, I love it, but it's mostly like sold by Julie Benz's baby voice. She is such a tiny little baby voice that I think immediately you're keyed into like, oh, she is vulnerable. And it is really darkly, maybe arguably poorly lit, but it does lean into like horror beats in a way that I think tells you exactly what we're doing here.
Yeah. So then post credits, then we meet our hero. We get the dream. She's like having a dream, but it's very nondescript bad dream. It's just
to be fair, if I were sleeping in white sheets with a white bedspread, I'd have nightmares about blood too. Maybe not the best choice. Speaking as a woman, but yeah, like, you know, I love the bad dream montage of like, here's as many like featureless, detailless, creepy images we can put in, and then we'll figure out which ones of them we actually need later.
That really is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We'll fill it in later. And Kiersten, you use a lot of the Slayer dreams a lot in your books. I wish the show had done more with the dreams, because they kind of like drop it, right? Like after.
Well, it's like all their mythology. If they need it, suddenly it pops back up and is super important, and then they ignore it for a few seasons. Which, you know, I'm not criticizing that. It's just kind of how it functions.
Yeah.
But yeah, because you know what? I love a good dream sequence. I know people have strong feelings about them. I think they're wonderful. I think they're super fun. Buffy has some of my favorite dream sequences ever. And so like, I like that they established that right off the bat, like that sometimes these are important. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, so we get Joyce, we meet Joyce. She's bringing her to school. She drops her off, and
Joyce, just the best, the best little haircut, like doing her best.
My note here was, please tell me I'm not older than Joyce now. Did the math. Kiersten, She's 41 in this scene. We are not older than her.
I was going to say, I think we might be, but okay, good. No. I'm glad we're not.
We're also not older than Giles.
Okay, so, good.
Bases covered. So I was watching this with my teens. They've never seen it. And my 17-year-old was like, I like that she's a vampire hunter, but she still has to go to school. And I was like, you get it. I was like, it's because they don't pay her. And she agreed. That was really unfair.
Yeah.
I'm glad she agreed. Mm-hmm. And I love that Joyce is like, don't get kicked out. Like we get this like very like 90s, like Xander's on a skateboard. I will say, this is a guy Closeted Ian would have had a crush on this guy in high school. Mm-hmm. I unfortunately have to admit his hair looks very cute here, I think. Mm-hmm. And then we see Willow, which like I get very, I don't know, Kiersten, I'm going to sound like you a little bit. I get like momish about it, where I'm like, no, I want to protect this like innocent child. She seems so young and so innocent, right?
Mm-hmm. But they also run into the problem that most shows run into, where they're like, oh, haha, she's a nerd. And you're like, she is literally the most luminously beautiful person you would have ever seen in your life. Even in a high school full of beautiful people, nobody would look at Willow and be like, psh, nerd. They'd be like, oh my gosh, look at your skin.
It's that outfit.
Look at your hair. Look at your eyes.
Okay, yeah. So we get, then where are we? Oh, we get the principal. She meets the principal, who is
Flutie.
Jamie, what do you think of the principal?
Poor Flutie. He's not long for this world. Bless him. It's not. You know, in like this episode, if you have no context for the show, it's just like, yep, that's a dopey little principal. But when you know like that he's about to be replaced with the most like frustrating person, right. It's like you kind of love Flutie because you only get him for such a short time. But I love when he rips up the transcripts, but then he starts taping them back together.
Yeah. When he finds out she burnt down her gym.
Yes. Yeah. Great humor.
What does he even say? Oh, like I tell the students they can call me Bob, but they don't. Like, and you're right. He is like, even when he's reprimanding her, he's being nice. And then I love like, because he's only like, what? The Pact is only like 4 episodes from now, and where he gets eaten. And then we get Principal Snyder, who is like the devil. And it's just such a like stark contrast.
But it's like a fun choice to start out with Flutie, because I think we anticipate that she's going to get some sort of like mean teacher, but all of the teachers are like pretty nice and good. Obviously, we're going to get Snyder later, but I sort of liked starting out with Flutie.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree.
So. After we finish admiring Buffy's eyeshadow in the principal scene, because her eyeshadow looks great. Really lovely. It's like this purple and blue, like it's sort of subtle. Anyway, she goes out to the hallway and bumps into someone. All of her stuff spills out of her bag, and then we have the "Can I Have You" scene with Xander, who is wearing a sheer top. He's wearing a sheer, like a sheer white button up over a tank top. I can't get over it.
Quite the outfit, and I don't remember that being in fashion.
I don't think it was.
Are you sure it's not a like tell me why? Like it's a Backstreet Boys video, but he's not soaking wet.
It could be.
It could be. I mean, I still think he looks super cute. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, teen Ian would have had the biggest crush on this like dumb kind of skater guy with like that kind of hair. But also like, the thing he says is like, can I have you? Which is like kind of sums
Xander.
up. Yeah, sums him up right away.
Yeah.
Does he skateboard after the pilot, or is this a one-time skateboarding fling?
Yeah, I don't think so. I feel like they realized that like, no, Xander's not even cool enough to be skateboarding.
There's probably also liability. They were like, are we really going to spend stunt money on him skateboarding? No.
That's true.
And then Cordelia shows up and is being super nice and welcoming. And
I love it.
Loves the idea of Buffy because Buffy's from LA and Buffy's cute. So she reaches out. But then she's really mean to Willow. And so we can't like her. Even though we love her. We love Cordy, but we don't like her in this scene.
Yeah, she's so brutal, and like Willow's little face where it's like she's got those big eyes and she's so innocent looking, and like in that outfit she really looks so young, and it's like, no, don't pick on this poor child. But it is an iconic line. The softer side of Sierra is like a very biting insult. Like the insults, I think the thing I was thinking about is how like when they say like James Spader, and I was like, was he ever like a heart?
I love that so much because I'm such a simp for Spader, and it makes me so happy that line exists.
But like, right? I don't know in '97 that he was like, was he?
I don't know. I think you're right. That's why it feels out of place, but it's just a random choice that I think is in a way timeless.
Because it's funny, because some of the stuff like that is like, ooh, that's dated. But like, you know, the insults like softer side of Sears like are still like, ooh.
I guarantee you my teens would have no idea what that means.
That's fair. True. Sears, is that even a store anymore? Is it like...
I don't know.
Maybe. But do they know who James Spader is?
Yes, because they love The Office.
Oh, Robert California. All right.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Fair. All right. So then we get
intro to the library.
Right. She goes to the library. And I love the Buffy and Giles stuff here. I said this in our season 7 recap, but I had done like when OK Boomer was like a meme that was blowing up. I did like a meme that was Giles explaining, being like, you are the chosen one, blah, 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 with Buffy just saying OK Boomer. And I do feel like someone replied, and I don't remember who it was, but like said that's her whole energy those first 2 episodes to Giles, and it really is.
It really is, yeah. It made me super nostalgic seeing the library, though. I loved that set. I loved the library as their sort of like hub. I think we definitely missed that. Going into season 4, they struggled to find a new sort of
I did think the magic box worked.
Oh yeah.
But then they blew it up. So
I miss it. Season 7, I really miss it.
Yeah,
I like Giles's little apartment as like a spot for 4, and the magic box works for 5 and 6. 7, they had nothing. But you're right, like seeing that little circular library, I just was like immediately in love. I missed it so much.
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't realize you missed it until you see it, and you're like, oh, the library.
Cages for no reason.
Yes.
Thank you for the book cages in case one of the books wants to escape.
Just in case one of the students happens to be a werewolf later on, we can use this cage. Which is right. Like, what the fuck is the purpose of that cage?
That's a great question.
So he pulls out the infamous vampire book, slaps it on the counter. She is not happy. She leaves. Then she goes out and onto the quad, right?
No, next we get the scene in the locker room of the 2 girls talking about how weird Buffy's name is, Ambrosia and what's her name?
It's Aphrodisia. She's like, what kind of name is Buffy? Hey, Aphrodisia. Yeah. It's a very good, silly beat.
It is very good. And they open the door and the dead body falls out, which, you know, my 15-year-old was like, happens to me all the time. High school's rough.
High school,
and then we get going out on the quad and befriending Willow. Which I think is such a great character detail, right? Because we see that the hot popular girl has already reached out to Buffy and extended this, you have an automatic into our group.
Yeah.
And Buffy has a good rapport with her. They have a funny back and forth. And then after, Buffy's kind of like, that would be exhausting to be friends with her.
Yeah.
And she picks Willow. And she goes out and she's deliberately friendly to Willow. And it says a lot about Buffy and who she is already. It's a great, great character detail.
Kiersten, yes, I was going to ask you how you felt about that, because I do like, it takes this long for the two best friends that we will stay with for the show to meet and kind of talk. But it is, I agree. I think it's a really good beat of showing us, because Buffy even says to her, Willow's immediately treating her like she's Cordelia, right? She's like, "You want me to move? I can move." And Buffy's like, no. Why don't we start with, "Hi, I'm Buffy," which I know I said this in Chosen too, how I love in season 5 for the gift. I think of her saying, "Why don't we start with 'Hi, I'm Buffy' as the beginning of that intro they do for the gift."
Mm-hmm.
But it's sweet, right? And she is being nice to her. And she's even says Cordelia's been really nice to me. But she like you said, she wants to be friends with someone who's maybe less severe.
Mm-hmm. Well, and because Buffy is an outsider already, she knows she's an outsider. She had to leave her previous high school. I'm sure none of her friends are still in contact with her because of what she did. And so she's already knowing, Cordelia is not going to be a real friend.
Right. And so then Xander and Jesse come over. I mean, I know that Cordelia, and she is very mean in this episode, but she has some really great lines and moments.
Mm-hmm.
When she comes over and Jesse stands up and he's like, "Hey, Cordelia," and she just puts her hand up and is like, "Oh, please," is so good. And then she is informing them about the dead student. And I don't know, she's very good in this scene. And I kind of almost, this shows you that she can hang with these people. She doesn't really want to, but she can, right? Because she's not being overly mean to any of them in this moment.
I do love her line of, "Don't you have an elsewhere to be?" So good.
Some of them feel I don't know if any of you, I mean, I love Clueless, so I say this very lovingly. Some of stuff like that feels very Clueless to me.
Yeah.
Right? And I love it.
A lot of this feels like a parody of how other people think Southern Californians talk.
I could see that, yes.
Which is fair.
You mean you don't say things like that, Kiersten?
I mean, I might. I don't know. I do the no for sure. I do the yeah.
I mean, we both do the dude, but I blame Jersey, but I'm sure that's not what you would blame. Jamie, what do you think of this scene where they're on the quad?
Oh, it's fun because it's very high school, and I like that. Cordelia, like you were saying, Cordelia isn't that mean to them because she may be mean, but above all, she wants to be the one to deliver interesting news. So she's like, here's a group of people I can tell this fact to. And I love that Buffy gets so she wants detective-y, and the morbid much is real delightful.
Yeah, Doug, what do you think?
No, it's more I think the initial scene with Buffy and Willow is sort of more interesting to me than the group scene with Cordelia, because Willow is so surprised that anybody would pay attention to her, and it sort of sets up, we've got 7 seasons of Willow realizing that she is the smartest, most competent person in any room that she's at, and right now we've got her apologizing for existing, and it's so fun to think about eventually you will realize that you are great. The Cordelia part is fun, but it more brings up for me no one is going to acknowledge that Jesse existed after the next episode. He seems very baked into this universe, and no one ever acknowledges him after this moment. It seems very sad.
Because they do a good job of making him baked in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then they promptly forget after he dies.
They give his entire personality, including wanting to bang Cordelia, over to Xander, and they
really do
all pretend he never existed.
Oh my god, I had never realized that, Doug, but you're right. They really just do transfer all of that to Xander. Jesus Christ. So then we get Buffy doing her investigation stuff. She, breaks down the door. She finds the dead body. And then she goes back to see Giles.
Okay, but pause.
Oh, yeah.
I love we see a teenage girl, first of all, that they just left a dead body on the floor of the locker room with a blanket over it. And then she breaks in, pulls back the blanket, and it's such a great moment. And again, they do so much work with so little in this episode. Like every line does so much work. When she just sees the dead body and sees the net wound and says, "Oh, great." Like, she's not horrified. She's not scared. She's not grossed out. She's annoyed because this just made her life more complicated. Amazing.
Kiersten, I know that you're putting it that way to be like, this is how they wrote that. And I'm like, I fucking love that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That
No,
she's like, oh, yeah, it's great. Then she goes to see Giles, and I love this scene of her and Giles because he's also right when he's like, well, then why did you come here if you don't want to do this? And she's like, I don't know. I just, thought you should know. And she's kind of like stumbling on herself.
My mom moved us here. I did not have a choice in the matter. Why do you keep thinking I have agency? My mom moved us here.
I am a teenager.
The only bone I have to pick with this episode is in this scene though, and it's that Giles doesn't know how someone becomes a vampire. Like, you trained as a watcher, and you have to be like, she has to explain to him that why this guy's not going to become a vampire, and I don't buy that at all.
The big circle of sucking.
Yes, it's a great line.
It is a great line. She has so many great lines, and I love that when she's like, she's annoyed by him and he's annoyed by her. And I kind of just love this mutual annoyance they're having with each other. When he's like, something bad will happen. And she's like, gee, can you vague that up for me? It's so good. And again, the other thing is, we talked about this a little bit, but I love, this is the Giles that would have done well with a Kendra Slayer, but he evolves as a character and he still is stuffy, but he learns he loves her like a daughter, and that changes him, right? And I love that about him.
Okay, so next we get our first sewer view.
Yes.
Subterranean candle city. So many candles. They're vampires. That's one of their only vulnerabilities. I think they would have figured out some alternate light source. I don't know.
Get some electricity down there. Lights are better for you. Right, so we see Luke, who later plays the judge in season 2.
He was just in Tragedy of Macbeth as well. He's in a lot of stuff.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Tragedy of Macbeth.
God.
He's one of the murderers that Denzel hires. Yeah, he's in a ton of stuff. Brian.
Yeah.
Thompson.
He's got a good face.
Yeah.
Now I need to watch Tragedy of Macbeth.
It's really good.
Wow.
Then we get Buffy trying on different outfits, right?
Yes. And I love her dialogue. Yes. I don't like the words she uses, but right. I love her talking to herself and holding up the different outfit options and figuring out who she wants to be that night, which is such a teen thing, but also such current day thing also.
I was going to say, at 39, I'm still doing that. And I do really like this Buffy Joyce scene. I think Joyce is very much, I don't know, it just feels like they are a mother and daughter, and she's wants what's best, and and she's like, well, you are a good kid, and she's like, are boys gonna be there? And she's like, no, it's a nun club, Mom. Which is such a good shitty teen response.
Yes. This is the point where my 15-year-old says to my 17-year-old, does it disturb you that you're older than Buffy the Vampire Slayer? And the 17-year-old says, she's clearly in her 20s.
Well, not wrong.
Not wrong.
Jamie,
this scene is so frustrating in a good way. All of Joyce and Buffy stuff in season 1 and season 2, it's it would just be solved so easily if she just knew the truth, but you understand why not. And it's Joyce is just being a good mom. It's not her fault that she's ignorant to the situation, but it gets so frustrating because it's in a really good way. And that's what it's so cathartic when she finally finds out.
Yeah. It's funny. I've said this a million times, but my mom is the one who got me into Buffy, and she does not like Joyce.
Oh,
she gets very
How do you not like Joyce?
My mom gets she did not accept her. She kicked her out of the house when she came out to her. How dare she? My mom gets very my mom is one if my mom were a younger person on Twitter, she would probably be trolling my podcast, because my mom loves Buffy and Spike. Neither of them can do any wrong. So she never forgot when Joyce kicked her out of the house in season 2. and like would always go back to that.
Can you do me a
Yes.
favor? Your mother does not know me, but can you just text her? Doug says Joyce is a single mom who's doing her best, and just leave it at that. I don't need to hear what the response is, but Joyce is doing her best, the best that Joyce can do at any given moment.
I will say, though, as a mom of teenagers, Joyce hits different. And that scene in season 3 where Buffy is like, how could you not have noticed? Like the blood on my clothes. And she's listing all those things. It breaks my heart because that's your fear as a mom, right? That something is going on with your kids and you don't know what it is, or because you're so busy trying, as you know, I'm not a single mom, but you know, trying to keep everything in your life going, that you're going to miss the signs. You're going to miss the signs that your child is actually a vampire slayer. Which is why I always check under my kids' beds for stakes. Fortunately, I think we're in the clear on that one, at least with my oldest. But yeah, like I agree. These scenes, I even have my notes like hopeful Joyce makes me sad because you know everything that's coming and you know everything that she doesn't know and everything that she doesn't see, and also the damage that she's inadvertently doing. Too, because she doesn't know these details about your daughter. Because you're right, like when Buffy does sort of like come out to her, she doesn't immediately accept her, and it is very damaging and it's very hurtful, and it hurts as you know remembering being a teenager in those situations where you feel like your parents can't see you, and then also as a mom of teenagers being like, what am I not seeing that my kids need me to see, and what inadvertent damage am I doing? It's wonderful. See all of this in a show about a teenage girl who fights vampires, and honestly, like. I'm not even being sarcastic. I think it's why it holds up so well. Because as silly and over the top and funny and goofy as this show is, it really hits on a true emotional core in all of the relationships. And that's why it works.
Kiersten, that's really well said. You must be a writer.
I must be.
So then Buffy sneaks out, right? Or no, wait, no, that's the next episode where
she just goes out.
She's allowed to go out this night. And who does she encounter, Doug, when she's walking to the Bronze?
The freshest faced David Boreanaz that you ever did see. His eyes are so like big and alive, and he's so handsome. And he's wearing the outfit that Angel wears in season 1, which is unfortunate. It's a lot of like person who was wearing a tux but has become disheveled over the course of the wedding.
What is that jacket made of? Is it velvet? Is it satin? I can't figure it out.
I don't know.
It's not great. He is like smiling. Like Angel doesn't smile much, but like he's like kind of being shitty and like immediately flirty and like looking her up and down and like has this smirk that's not leaving his face.
He doesn't even know that someday he'll do the worst Irish accent that any of us have ever heard. But he looks so alive in his face. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I always forget that he's so charming and like fun when you meet him. He's such a different character. Like my boyfriend's never seen this before, and I turned to him and I'm like, get ready because Angel's gonna progress into a little bitch over time. He just gets so broody and unhappy so quickly. But in the beginning, it's like, yeah, I would have wanted to meet him in a dark alley as well.
Yeah, right. Like, I'll meet that twink there. That's fine.
Yeah, I think they really didn't know who he was yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So maybe I lied when I said every character was fully formed. He wasn't quite there, but that's fine.
Yeah, but it's fine because he's great in these scenes. It's fun. It's, like you said, it's flirty. Yeah. He's wearing a baffling outfit, but he's still very attractive.
And I do think, I noticed here, some of the musical cues are very dated, but some of them still like fucking slap, right? Like some of them are still like really well done for this show with no budget from 1997.
Mm-hmm. He does do my least favorite thing though, where he's like, you've got to be ready. For what? For the harvest. Okay, don't say anything else. Clearly you know what the harvest is.
Yeah.
It's like, for the harvest. Here's a necklace. Bye, babe. Like,
we learn later that you've been miserable in a sewer waiting for this exact moment. Right. And the extent of the details that you give her is just those two words, the and harvest, and then you walk away. Yep. Congrats. Good job.
Yeah.
I did also think, Kiersten, how like this, I mean, we talked about this in Chosen, but like how his exit in Chosen is exactly like his exit here. Like even the shadows look the same. Mm-hmm. How it's like, that sideways shadow, and he just kind of fades into it. Ugh.
Yes.
Ugh, I love that. So, and I like that he's like, what does he say to her? Like, I thought you'd be bigger with muscles, but you're pretty
I
spry.
thought you'd be taller, which,
right.
If I had $1 for every time I heard that.
But also, he's been stalking her for a while, like watching her in her old school.
That's exactly how tall she isn't. Yeah.
It's like, you didn't take her measurements too? Oh, I thought you did that. But yeah, this feels like a very different character than the character we do get later on, even in season 1 later on.
Mm-hmm.
But so he leaves through the shadows, he gives her that cross. And I want to tell you all that during the pandemic Christmas, not in 2021, but in 2020, I think, Forever 21 was having a big sale on jewelry, and I ordered a necklace that is literally that same cross that I will never wear in public because I'm not someone who would wear a cross. I literally only bought it because it looked just like Buffy's cross, and I have it hanging on a little, like, the necklace rack that I have, and I've never worn it, probably never will, but it makes me smile every time I look at it. It looks just like her cross.
It was fun in that era when, like, Madonna made, like, crosses just fashion, and Buffy it feels very similarly. For her, it's, practical, but I kind of miss that too, where, like, you could get away with, like, a clunky cross and no one would think that it was for religious reasons.
Right, yeah.
You can't do that anymore.
The variations on that theme is Sarah Michelle Gellar in Cruel Intentions turning a crucifix into something you can sniff cocaine out of.
I've almost bought that on Etsy, the cocaine cross.
If you find it, which it seems like you have, please send it to me.
I saw it and I tried to find it again and I couldn't. It was like I didn't bookmark it, and I need to go back. Catherine Martelli is a tattoo I plan to get.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I do love her Cruel Intentions.
Yes.
So then we get to the bronze, and it's cute that, like, Buffy's the new girl, so she, like, accidentally waves at someone else who's not waving at her. And I do think it's very cute how excited Willow is just that Buffy's, like, sitting with her, right?
Yeah.
Like, she's by herself, and she even says she only went there because of Xander. And Buffy gives her this, like, seize the day, and Willow's like, her mind's blown that Buffy told her to seize the day, and I love that.
Buffy leaves and says, I'll be right back, and Willow says, you don't have to come back, as if it's an obligation, and Buffy has to assure her that she wants to come back.
It's so cute. God.
The librarian is hanging out in his tweed jacket up on the upper floor of the teen hangout, so there's some red flags.
Wait, but before that, I gotta say, Cordelia has such a ridiculous line of, I mean, nobody cool has Epstein Barr anymore.
Yes.
But yes, then so we get Buffy and Giles up on the balcony, which I was like, oh god, this is the balcony where Spike and Buffy do dirty things to each other later on.
Yeah.
You can say have sex.
But I don't think they have sex on that. I think it's just like hand stuff. I don't know.
I think it's hand stuff for sure.
Anyway, she tells Giles he's like a textbook with arms, which I thought was a good, silly insult.
You love Giles' info dumps, right?
Yes.
They're fast. They give the necessary information, and Buffy always reacts in funny ways so that it moves quickly, right?
Yes.
Because shows always struggle with that. You have the Game of Thrones where if we have to talk politics, we'll make sure there's at least one naked person in the scene. And in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, it's if we have to give you information on world building, we'll also include jokes.
Yeah. And like for me, my favorite part is when he's like, you have to hone your skills and make sure you can figure out. She's like, that guy, he's dressed really dated. I can tell he's a vampire.
Yes. Well, I love too because it's showing like these things that people might look down on her for, or like oh, she's just a stupid teenager. No, she can actually use them as skills in her unpaid career as a slayer. I will say several scenes in these episodes, Giles talks way too close to people. Way too close.
Yes.
He is like leaning over her shoulder, talking right in her ear. And like one thing that I have always appreciated about Buffy is that they never, ever, ever made the dynamic between Buffy and Giles weird.
Yes.
And I love that, and I'm very grateful for that. But this scene, I'm like, Giles, but personal space. You were much, much too close. And then he does the same thing to Willow later. Anyway.
Yes. Kiersten, it's funny that you point that out because 2 years ago, I think a year or two ago, Zoraida Cordova and I interviewed Isabella Gomez from One Day at a Time. And what we did was we had her watch the first episode because her character in One Day at a Time loved Buffy, but the actress had never watched it. So she watched the first episode and we talked about it. And it was actually really interesting because she's also a lot younger. I think she, at the time, was like 21, maybe 22. So it was interesting hearing her take on it. And she asked both of us, she was like, wait, I gotta ask you, Giles stays good the whole time, right? And we were like, why? And she said, well, he talks really close to two of the girls and they're like teenagers. And we were like, no. That's just like, we promise he's fine. He's great. He's actually not a problem at all. And she was like, oh, okay. She was like, I thought that was like a creeper vibe that I was supposed to get.
I really just think it's a framing issue. I think that a lot of these scenes are not shot particularly well. They're super dark, as we mentioned, and yeah, like I think they're just not shot super well, and so it's a framing issue. But it does create that, like, and that's interesting that she picked up on it because if a man was talking that close to me, I'd be like, nah, I'm going to elbow you in the groin now.
In his defense, he's older, and the bronze is loud.
That's true. That is also true. Yeah.
Doug,
I think he might not be like fully baked in yet as a character because I think we have to hit the right balance between like stern and paternal and encouraging. And I think in these first two episodes, he's not paternal with her. He just seems frustrated with her. And there's like, granted, the tenderness takes time to build, but you've got like an older man that's saying stern things to a very tiny, like teenage girl. And it just is going to feel gross. I think it takes a while for them to find the balance.
Yeah, that's fair. But I also do think like he evolves with Buffy. Like he learns to lighten up because of her, because it's like even just that beat of like, use your skills and figure out. And she's like, oh, that guy, he's dressed datedly. Like, and he's like, oh, that does work. You know what I mean? Like, I think Giles warms up to the like, I don't know Kiersten, what am I trying to say?
She lightens him up. She relaxes him. She shakes him out a little bit. She puts a sombrero on him. He's wearing a sombrero by season 4 and having a good old time. I do think what is cute about that scene is like when they later recognize that Willow is in danger, because Willow had said something about like how much she's absolutely in love with the new British librarian earlier, that he like shows her books and is kind to her, that he gives a sort of like, oh no, is the vampire with Willow, meaning like he cares about Willow.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. Then we move to, what is it? She sees that this dated guy is talking to Willow. She leaves to go save him. And we get, she's going backstage. And Jamie, what is the iconic line that happens back here?
Wait.
When she accidentally attacks Cordelia.
I just watched it literally 20 minutes ago. Yeah, what is your childhood trauma? That's it. You got it. I failed.
Jamie, you get an F.
That's not, you know what? In my defense, I'm really hungover.
And I was rude and stole that from you.
No, you deserved it because I blanked. I was thinking, because I laughed so hard at when she's like, excuse me, I have to call every person I've ever met.
Yes.
It's also amazing.
Yeah. I pointed this out on Twitter once. It is wild that season 7, it's like a plot point that they get cell phones, and Cordelia had a cell phone in the first episode. Just like my timeline of cell phones is a little blurry. I guess it's supposed to, that is supposed to be like, she is rich. That's why she has one, right?
I mean, at that stage in high school, if you had a cell phone, you were rich. Like, they were expensive.
And it's like, I love how big it is and that she has to pull up the antenna. And that scene is, I think of Charisma Carpenter quoted that like casually when she was talking about her son when she was on the podcast. She was like, my son gets so annoyed by me. He's very much like, what is your childhood trauma to me all the time. And I love that. And once she commented saying that like, that's one of the lines she remembers the most. Like she was like, I love the deep breath and then the, what is your childhood trauma? And like, it is a good line, right? It's one of those like, yeah, Cordelia has a lot of good lines. So then Buffy, who does she run into Xander? Is that what happens?
I think she's just running out. And then the next scene is our underground blood pool because the master is drama. He's just like hanging out in this blood pool, and then rises not covered by any blood. I have questions. I have questions about that.
Kiersten, I meant to ask. I was like, is there something I'm missing, or no? Is it just like, oh, nope, he's rising out of this blood pool, and here we are?
No, because you're like, did they just do a ceremony to summon him? But they all have existing relationships with him. So I guess sometimes he's just down in the blood pool and comes up when he wants to.
Sure.
I don't know. I think they were pretty hand wavy with the details on who the master is and why he's trapped down there, and which is fine.
Yeah.
Still better effects than that snake that happens in season 5.
True. And then we get our master with his great rising from the blood, and then we cut to Willow in the cemetery with the vampire, and she says, "Sure, it's dark," and he says, "It's night." And I'm like, you know what? I don't care if you're taking her to kill her. You can be nice to her until
like, listen, dickhead, it's the same thing. Then we cut back to then Buffy runs into Xander.
Buffy runs into Xander, yes.
Right. And he calls her out for quote unquote thinking she's a vampire slayer because he overheard her and Giles in the library, which does call attention to the fact that they very much openly talk about it a lot at the high school.
I like that they do eventually make fun of the fact that no one ever comes in the library.
Yeah.
Like, there's a time where I think 2 kids walk in and they're all shocked.
Yeah, because Xander has the line of, "What do you think this is, a Barnes and Noble?" And I'm always like, "Oh, that's where I work." So then he pretty much believes her pretty quickly, right?
I don't know.
I would say yes. He at least believes that she believes it, enough to go along with her, and then he learns pretty quickly that it's true.
Yeah.
Right. And so they go to this crypt, which I was wondering, I'm curious what we all think. Is that crypt the same? Do they have that same set for the entire series? Because it doesn't not look like the crypt they use for Spike's crypt that he lives in.
Spike's is a lot bigger, though, isn't it?
Yeah,
right.
Spike's bigger.
But the entrance and stuff looks the same? I don't know.
Probably. I mean, you've seen one crypt mausoleum, you've seen them all.
I've seen them all. So we get the thing I love about this is how quickly, I mean, like you said, Doug, she's already, we already know her. We already know she can do this. So she's immediately Spider-Man level quipping with these vampires. She's not scared of them. She's not really that pressed. She's kind of all right, I'm going to slay these vampires because I want to save my friends. I still don't want to do this, but I'll do it. And I like that. I like the we can do this the hard way, or actually there's just the hard way. And she immediately states that one vamp.
And then she starts monologuing.
Yeah.
She's totally monologuing. And then Luke shows up and interrupts her monologue.
And then we get the weirdest be continued that would never fly in another Buffy episode, where it's this one vamp, just that? Great. So then we'll move on to the harvest. What saves her, Kiersten?
What does save her? She kicks Liv.
I remember this one. It's the necklace.
Okay.
Let me get one right. It's the necklace.
Okay. Yes. What does?
So that she runs off. She goes to save. We see that all the vamps have surrounded everyone. And I don't know if any of you noticed, there's a shot of Darla and her hair is very wet. It's they're panning across the vampires and they stay on Darla, and her hair is clearly soaked, and it's not in any other scene. So I really wonder what happened to Julie Benz during that. But so she comes in, she saves them. They've lost Jesse. I don't know where he is. Then they go back to the library, and we get what happens, Kiersten. Then in the library, it's a little bit of info dumping, right?
Yes, we get more info dumping. I do have in my notes Giles info dump. I love too that here they're pretending like there's a unified mythology where he's explaining how the world works and why there are vampires and demons. That there used to be old ones who roamed the earth, and then now they're on different planes. But the last one, as he was leaving, bit someone. So basically, vampirism is an STD that has passed down the generations. And this is a mythology that, they draw on when they need it and they ignore it when they don't, which, whatever. If I were writing a 7-season show, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
So Willow and Xander are having to process now that they are on the inside. They know how the world actually works. And it's cute because this is where we're starting to see the team form, right?
Yeah. Willow accepts, Willow and Xander kind of accept it. We get like, what, he does kick the trash can or something. That's like his one moment of grief, and then we move on. So she goes to find out what happened. Giles says that there's like a preordained massacre. She goes to leave school. And I think of this scene a lot, like, because it's such a silly scene when Flutie stops her.
You're skipping way ahead.
Well, first there's a sort of moment where they realize that there must be some sort of tunnel system that they're all operating under. And so then Willow is like, hi, I am the world's first hacker, and I will hack into the city systems and figure out where their little lair is.
Yes.
You know that happens.
Xander somehow knows that there are electrical tunnels running under the whole town, which was convenient information for a 15 or 16-year-old to have.
It's a hobby. You know what I think about a lot? And Giles said when he corrects his overly British and just says, look it up on the net. The net is a term that didn't stick. And I think about that all the time, that we never say the net like they did in the 90s. Like there's a whole movie with Sandra Bullock called The Net, and we didn't keep saying it. We say the internet. And I don't know why, but I often think about that. And so when Giles says it, it was a reminder of that.
That is fascinating,
right?
Because usually we shorten everything, and yet the net did not stick.
Huh.
Right?
I hadn't even thought about that, Jamie. You're right. So then, Giles figures out it's a preordained massacre. That's what the harvest is, from like the 2 words that Angel told Buffy.
We do have a master scene in here too, where they deliver their one whole team that they got him. Right. They're bad hunters. Like these vampires really are inefficient. If I were the master, I would be pissed. Also, they already sampled Jesse. I hate sharing my drinks. Like I'm on the master's side on this one. Like he is well within his rights to be angry. But then also he says he's been there for 70 years, which initially I was like 30 years, but it's 60 years. But still, that doesn't feel very long.
Yeah, it doesn't.
All the mythology in this one is pretty hand wavy. Like, it can only happen every 100 years. Like, why? Why?
Counterpoint, Dodge?
No, it's that. It's also like he's been down there for 60 years. What does that mean in the scheme of things? But I was more going to say, like, Darla is especially snivelly during this entire time. She's like really apologizing about sampling Jesse and is getting sort of like choked. She's whining, she's begging. And I really hate that.
Same.
Like given how Darla ends up being, and I always really love her arc. It's strange to me to have to sit there and watch her like complain to this gross prosthetic monster.
And they talk more in Angel about how, like, she is all very much in service of the master, but it also feels like he respects her more. Like there's a reason why he chose her. And in the beginning, it doesn't fit with that. And I totally agree. I don't like seeing Darla like that because she does have some, like the literal series starts with her being powerful and cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Julie Benz is great. So he like closes the gate. He's like, even when he's reprimanding her, still be nice. And then she just jumps over it, which I love.
Well, she's been sent to run an errand for the British librarian because in Britain they're allowed to do these things.
Right.
I also do love that Buffy figures out where the entrance is.
Yes.
We get those black and white remembering scenes, but I like that everyone is playing a role here, right? Everyone is contributing, and it's setting the foundation for the Scooby Gang. And I like that the show never says that Buffy isn't smart.
Yeah.
Because it would have been easy for them to treat her like, she's strong, but she's not very bright or whatever. But she figures stuff out. Like she's observant. And I like that. So yeah, she jumps over the fence.
Right. And then she goes to the crypt. She runs into Angel, who is less than helpful again.
Okay, but also, what? He wasn't using the tunnels because all the enemy vampires were in them. So he literally got into the crypt pre-dawn and just stood there in the shadows waiting just in case she figures it out and shows up so that he can tell her, you shouldn't go in there. You're not ready. And then she goes in there. We know he doesn't follow her. So is he just standing there the rest of the time until
there's a Rosencrantz and Guildenstern that's just Angel's life in these 2 episodes, and he spends so much of it in a corner waiting for something to happen.
Yes. Oh man.
Well, yeah, so it is wild because he doesn't go, and so I guess he just stays there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the other thing I have a issue with is then she runs into Xander in the tunnel.
Mm-hmm. So Angel didn't stop Xander or talk to him.
Right.
He was like, well, I guess that kid can go. Whatever.
Which is interesting considering they would be like hate boyfriends in a season.
Yes.
So then we get we got to talk about, we cut back to the school. Giles realizes the harvest is tonight, and we get the computer class scene, which I do love.
Yes.
Harmony Kendall.
It's I love everything going on here because Cordelia's got some really good, who gave you permission to exist is a very good Clueless-esque insult. And I love that Willow, being friends with Buffy, we see that it's made her a little bit more bold, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
because
yeah.
the Willow we met at the beginning of the first episode would never say something challenging Cordelia, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're already in character development, which I love to see.
Yes, their eyebrows are so of the era in this scene. Just oh my gosh, look at their eyebrows. I had those eyebrows. And yeah, I love Willow's revenge in this scene. So we have Cordy and Harmony doing their programming assignment. And they're like, well, how do we turn it in? We're done. And just the cleverness of it's deliver. And they look on the keyboard and there's DEL and they hit it and it deletes it. It's such a small, I love that for Willow. I love it.
Did your kids have any comments on how easy it was to delete something and not get it back?
I mean, I thought about that. My kids only watched the first episode with me because I didn't realize I was watching both episodes. So episode 2 was watched while they were at school. So we have reached the end of my teens' commentary.
Darn.
Unfortunately,
They're really enjoying it.
I know they were really fun to watch it with. But yeah, no, we all kind of had that thought. Did they select the whole thing first? But whatever, it worked. I didn't even care if it is unrealistic because it's such a satisfying moment.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then we go back into the maze that someone has built under the city.
A really fun, wacky maze. They find Jesse pretty easily. Is he pretending or is he just newly vampired? So he's not sure what's going on.
No, he's pretending.
Yeah,
he's
pretending.
Okay.
Yeah.
This was the only watch where I was like, oh, is he just flustered because he just came back? But okay, that makes sense.
No, they're so dark. These scenes are so dark.
So dark.
And granted, you are in tunnels under the city, so I guess I probably would be why are these tunnels so well lit if they were well lit? But it's so dark. Yeah. So they're running. They are being chased. They find the room that Jesse leads them to, and it's a dead end.
Right. And we find out that Jesse is now a vampire. And I love that Buffy can't shut the door. It's oh, that's so cute. Jesse, but I do love that, she can't shut the door, but she can pick up Jesse and throw him into the oncoming vampires.
It was vampire bowling.
Yeah.
Yes.
And also, I do think that's an iconic image of her and Xander pushing the steel door shut with that clawed vampire hand coming out, right?
Oh yeah, that's in the credits. That's in the opening credits. Yeah.
They throw Jesse. They shut the door.
They climb up into yet more tunnels.
Yeah, they get out into a construction site or something, right? They come above ground.
Yeah. Then we cut back to Sunnydale High, I think.
No, the Master and the Minions. He's really disappointed in his minions, and we get a punishment when he tells the guy there's something in his eye.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of visual puns and jokes in these 2 episodes, which I genuinely appreciate. There's one scene where Angel is in an alley and right next to him is a sign.
Watch your step.
watch your step.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I was like, they did that on purpose.
Yeah, I totally noticed that this time around too.
Yeah, and there's a lot of like there are the obvious ones like with the master and his puns and whatever, but like they have a lot of like very cheeky visual jokes in these 2 episodes, and I love it. Like a lot of thought went into it. But that scene doesn't actually matter.
It starts the long tradition of the big bad for the season is camp.
Yeah,
just can't be.
Yes.
Yeah, because I will say, like, we don't get a lot here as much, but like the master does be, like you said, Kiersten, he is drama. Like he becomes such a drama queen. I like had tweeted the image of like him with that when he in the Wish when he has that tiny cappuccino saucer and he's just sipping from it. Like that is ridiculous, and I love it.
Yes, we have a powwow scene in the library where I don't know. They're talking. Is there a lot of cuts? I had issues with how many cuts there were.
No, then you're right. There are a lot of cuts. So this is when we get, yes, Giles is giving them more information. Willow, or Buffy, I do like this line when Buffy's like, so Giles, do you have anything that could make this day any worse? He says, how about the end of the world? And she says, I knew I could count on you.
Yes.
He tells them about like the Boca de Inferno, and that means, the mouth of hell. And then they tell Buffy the history of the master, which again, Kiersten, like you said, is very hand-wavy. Like, okay, sure, fine, whatever. Buffy goes home. Joyce tells her she's not allowed to go out. Buffy packs her supplies, sneaks out a window, and we cut to the bronze. And this is
what I like here? That disappears later on. Buffy knows that she's going into a battle, right? Xander figures out immediately that it's going to be at the bronze, which again, I like that everybody is contributing something. Buffy dresses practically.
Yeah.
She's wearing a very practical outfit.
And a gray jacket.
Yeah. And she's wearing like a t-shirt with good range of movement. Later on, even when she knows she's going into battle, I'm like, would you wear those shoes really? But here, she still is like, I need some range of motion. I'm not going to wear a full length leather skirt.
I spent a lot of time making those figures for the Chosen image, and everyone is wearing like giant heels and like a chunky heel or like a thin heel, and I'm like, well, none of that is practical. So yeah, you are right. She does dress a little bit more. They tried to do that. I feel like in the earlier seasons, like her Slayer outfit versus like her like regular school outfit.
Yeah. And I actually really, really like this scene too because she's got the confrontation with her mom. Her mom says everything is life or death when you're a 16-year-old girl, and I feel like that's another thesis of the show. Because that's what it does, right? It's metaphor. First love is so painful that it could potentially kill you.
Right.
All of these things. It's like I wrote thesis statement. But I also love another like great visual is she pulls out this chest, and the top layer is all this girly stuff, all this very teenage, sweet, girly stuff. Moves that aside. And underneath it all is just weapons and ways to kill things. And like, there's Buffy. There's Buffy in a single image, which I think they did a lot of really, really good work in these 2 episodes.
Yeah, I that's a good point, Kiersten. I hadn't thought of that. It really is like, look, this is her in this chest. There you go. The show. This will be the show. So we cut to the bronze. This is where we have our climax. We get Cordelia gives the really good line of she's like, randomly like ranting about why she dates senior boys. They have a car, blah, blah, blah. And then the girl at the table says like one thing. And Cordelia says, I'm sorry, Miss Motormouth, can I get a sentence in? Can I finish a sentence? Something like that. God, I just slaughtered that line. Hello, Miss Motormouth. Can I get a sentence finished? That's the line.
Yeah. She also says that like when I go into a store, I don't want to buy the most expensive thing. Not because it's expensive, but because it costs more.
Like, Doug, doesn't that feel like something like a drag queen at brunch would say?
Of course. Cordelia is like on 10 for these entire 2 episodes in a way that's so delightful. And I also I forget how often, so through the first like 3 seasons, just a massacre at the Bronze happens so regularly that I didn't realize like, oh, the first episode or the first 2 episodes we get a massacre at the Bronze. How fun.
It really is like a natural like, oh, it must be a Wednesday, everyone died last night at the Bronze. Jesus. Yeah, so then the vampires all enter, and Darla brings Luke Cordelia to like eat on stage, and we get Buffy with her very good superhero entrance where she throws one of the vampires off the balcony and says, "I'm sorry, were you in the middle of something?" Which is so good. I don't know. I was thinking about this in terms of like, Buffy was my first like really big genre show because I went from like comic books to Buffy, and I had X-Men animated series, but I feel like Buffy really makes sense as the next thing I went to because she's as quippy, if not quippier, than like Spider-Man or like some of the X-Men, and like it's fun that she's just like being shitty while saving everyone, right? And like I know especially now that's like the norm, but it really wasn't back then, right?
I also love that like everyone in the Bronze is just standing there, hanging out, watching, waiting for their turn to go up to the stage and be killed.
And there is a back entrance. There's an emergency exit that Giles and Xander and Willow have found, but none of them, while being like shoveled off to the side of the backstage, have thought to like push against that emergency exit and try to get out of it. They just wait for Giles to be like, "Come out this way." Like, didn't you look?
Yeah.
The people of Sunnydale are notoriously just unable to handle things, and I think that this is a good start for them to show that they are. It is a pretty incompetent town.
Yes. Yeah, and they do actually do a good job of like, I think Giles even says, or Buffy says that happens a lot, right? That like when like monsters and demons come out, people just like do a little mental gymnastics to explain it away, right?
Yeah.
So Buffy saves Cordelia. We get Willow and Giles and Xander. They like join to help.
Oh, we get the throne symbol beheading, which how sharp were those symbols?
Yes.
But it is a classic Buffy kill. It really,
It really is. And like, you know what? Right before that, we also get the pool stick kill before she like jumps up to Luke. And it's such a silly gag because it stays there for so long. But I like it. I don't know.
I also like Jesse's death. It's funny. Like you think Xander's gonna kill his friend, but then he just get bumped into him.
Yeah, it's great. It's great.
It really, really is. And like, I love the image of after she's defeated Luke, she does her like stand there and intimidate and just kind of like gives dagger eyes to the other vampires and they run out.
But let's talk about her defeat of Luke. So we have the everything is lost moment where it looks like our heroes are being overrun. And then she gets her second wind, headbutts him. And I loved this. Like, it's just so clever. She throws a piece of equipment through the window and light comes in and Luke is freaking out because, oh no, the sun.
Right.
She's like, you forgot something, sunrise. He freaks out. She's like, it's in 8 hours.
That's very hocus pocus.
Yes, it's so funny. It's so good. It is very hocus pocus. That's true. But I love it.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny. It gives her the perfect opening. And then we get to kill Luke, which thank goodness, because he was so obnoxious with his like sermons.
Yes. A little Caleb-y almost, right, Kiersten?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
his like fake scripture that he was always quoting, like,
and
just
like,
die, Luke.
And he calls her like girl a whole lot and whatever.
But yeah, then we get Buffy's power pose, which is so great. We see the master being very upset.
Yes.
And then Angel has been creeping outside the entire time without helping.
Doing
he was literally
nothing.
just standing outside the Bronze next to the watch your step sign and is like, good job. She did it. Like, okay, bud, thanks.
In what will sort of become a motif of season 1.
Yeah.
I feel like it's that meme, well, not even a meme, the literal screenshot that always goes around with from Sailor Moon with Tuxedo Mask, where he's like, my work here is done, and she's like, you didn't do anything. Like, that really is Angel in season 1.
Yeah.
And then we get like, they're like, did we win? We averted the apocalypse for sure, and like nothing will ever be the same, which I feel like, and I say this and I don't mean this in a negative, but we do get the thesis over and over again. So we will know what the show will be moving forward, right? And they do a good job of like every other scene in these first 2 episodes is showing you and telling you what the show will be moving forward.
Yeah, it's true. I still think like Anthony Oliveira made a really good point. I think it was the opening to season 5. Is that the one with Dracula?
Yeah.
Where he said it's a perfect season opener because it establishes all the themes of that season in one episode. You see all the dynamics that are going to play out and all the themes and all the relationships. And I think that this these 2 episodes do that. You see the relationships being set up. You see the dynamics. You see, it's telling you what the show is going to be. And yeah, that cut, like nothing's going to be the same. And then literally everything is the same. Like it's great. It's super great. It's so funny.
Yeah, so we cut to the next day at Sunnydale High, and like Xander and Buffy hear Cordelia recapping what happened. And she's just like, what did she say? It was a gang, and like somehow they knew Buffy. Doesn't give Buffy credit for saving her at all.
Xander says, the dead rose, we should at least have an assembly.
And then we get them like discussing, and even another thesis is Giles, I forget who says more vampires, and he's like, not just vampires, and he like lists other things, which we know, what, it's only 2 seasons that the big bads are actually vampires? Yeah, just the first 2, and then it's other bigger demons each time. Until we
also get great foreshadowing where Buffy's like, I'm going to try and get kicked out of school. And he said, maybe you could blow something up. Me too. I blow the whole school up.
And Doug, what is the line that Giles gives as he walks away, which is the same line he gives in Chosen?
I'm going to fail this test. I'm going to fail this test.
The Earth is doomed.
Yes, there you go, Jamie. I like
that. We got each other back.
Thank you.
Did you guys, having just watched Chosen, did you get emotional? Because like I definitely teared up a bit.
Yes.
I did. I was like, oh, because I do love that scene in Chosen. And I like that it's just a little different. He says the Earth is definitely doomed in Chosen. Like but I remember catching that when I watched it live and being like, and I think it's a very good, like, silly beat to end on, to make sure we all know this is lighthearted on purpose. Like, right? All right, now that we're at the end, favorite scene from Welcome to the Hellmouth, Jamie?
Oh gosh, it's tough because there's so many good ones, but I think it's probably I think it's Giles and Buffy meeting, because I love their relationship, and it kicks off so well to what it's going to be. Not necessarily when he whips out the book, but like their big scene in the library together when she's, just talking about, it's like the first time she's just like, I'm just trying to live my friggin' high school life. And then of course it comes back in Prophecy Girl so intensely. And I just love surrogate father figures, like very much like Coulson and Daisy on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's one of my favorite tropes.
Yeah. What was your favorite scene in The Harvest?
Probably when I'm stalling for time to think about it. I didn't prepare my answer for this question, so I'm going to say, the end. It's the final scene. Absolutely the final scene. And I do like that it really sets up how much the first 2 episodes are like. It feels like later Buffy, where it's like, a 2-parter big apocalypse thing, but then it's like, but this is going to be a Monster of the Week show for a while, and that's how it kind of sets up in the end. And I really like the finale of that.
Doug, what was your favorite scene in both episodes?
Probably so in Welcome to the Hellmouth, I think it's that scene where Buffy sort of like approaches Willow eating lunch outside and talks to her, only because like I think I don't key into that friendship as being as central as it is, but you watch that episode and it's so like, it says so much about Buffy as a character that she chooses Willow and chooses to sit down to her and be kind to her and bring her out of her shell. It's just really like sweet to watch while being really funny. And I think immediately endears you to both of them in a way that like carries you through 7 years, I think. And
Doug,
then in the second
you're
episode,
making me emotional.
Probably...
That's really accurate. Yes. Sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
No, and then in the second episode, I think it is that like library scene after they're all back where you get sort of like they're doing recon in the library, they're strategizing. Willow is immediately sort of like, I'm gonna hack the internet, I'm gonna hack the net and tell you a solution. Buffy is like being smart and intuitive and contributing things that you get a sense of like, oh, these are how each of these four of these people are going to function into a unit. And I think it sets that dynamic up extremely well. That sort of like dynamic that is the sort of like spell that they do at the end of season 4 of like sort of like head, heart, fist, whatever. That you've got like, oh, this is how this unit is going to work. Lovely. Each of these people are bringing something to the table, even Xander in his own Xander way.
Kiersten?
I mean, they're all such great episodes. I do just really love is again, the character work they do with Buffy is so great with, with the scene with Willow and all those things. So I do love when she breaks into the locker room, pulls back the blanket, and her response is, "Oh, great." Like, it's so great. It's such a great moment. And then in the harvest, I mean, setting aside the end scene, which is so wonderful, I do love the power pose. I love the way she's lit.
Yeah.
I love the way she stares out. I love that the vampires are like, oh no, we're going to die. Because again, like there's just so many moments, so many details that set up the rest of the series perfectly. And that's one of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think Doug, I want you to know that you have convinced me that actually my favorite scene in Welcome to the Hellmouth is that Willow Buffy scene.
It's just it's so good how like it's an active choice.
Yeah.
It's the easiest thing for her to do is to be friends with Cordelia, and she makes an active decision that she like sees this girl and wants to be friends with her.
And like knows it will affect her standing with said popular girl and doesn't like care, right? So I'm gonna go with that. And then for the harvest, the computer lab scene, because I love seeing Willow get her own agency, which doesn't mean that I thought she was poorly written before. It just she's like building this confidence to have it, and I like to see that. Favorite outfit from each episode, Kiersten?
I hate Xander's mushroom shirt in the first episode so much that I actually wrote it into my Buffy series. It has a cameo.
Wait, really?
Yes, nobody ever picked up on it, which is fine. It was a very subtle cameo. So they're looking in the back portion of the castle where it's disused and there's just a bunch of junk, and they find a shirt and they can't figure out if it was originally patterned with mushrooms or it has just grown with mushrooms. I really hate mushrooms. So yeah. Also, Jesse's shirt in the quad scene when they're outside, I made the comment, I'm like, all of their shirts are 7 sizes too big. And my daughter, who is a senior in high school, was like, yeah, Mom, teenagers at my school wear shirts that are too big, including me. And I was like, oh, okay, sorry.
It has come back.
It has come full circle, yes.
Doug, what were your favorite outfits?
So Cordelia has like a black and sheer striped blouse when you first meet her.
Yes.
That is really sort of like chic and cute and adorable. It's a little old for her in the way that they sort of dress Cordelia like a little bit of a 35-year-old throughout the first, like, honestly, 3 seasons, but it's really, it's great and it's a good look. Buffy in the Harvest has like the outfit that she's wearing when she goes to the Bronze. She's got like a ponytail that she sort of like spreads out in a way that like I think only existed in the late 90s. That is the leather jacket is great, but I love this like spread bouncy ponytail thing that she's doing. That is fun and cute and great.
I like that that's what you like the most is the weird ponytail. Jamie.
Listen, I'm an Ariana Grande fan who loves a pony.
Jamie?
I probably personally would wear that mushroom shirt because I like to be loud. But my favorite, I love Buffy's first day of school outfit. It's just it's so iconic. Buffy, the boots, the skirt, and all of her outfits in the first 2 seasons are so specific. And I hate her season 3 look where she becomes more like pink and bright colors. And I know that's to contrast her with Faith, but like I get so mad when she loses the sense of style that she has in the first 2 seasons. But that very first, like that's the first day of high school, I wore a Pulp Fiction t-shirt. I wasn't really like, and I'm like, why was that what I chose to wear my very first day of high school? I'll never forget that was what I did. But and then the second episode, I love that jacket she wears. I would wear the heck out of that jacket.
Yeah. I think I go back and forth. I really like Cordelia's blue. Is that like a maxi dress that she's wearing to the bronze in the first episode? Is that what you call that? I don't know. But I like that like blue colored dress. I think it looks very cute on her, but I also do really like Buffy's first day of school outfit. There's a lot going on, but I like it. And for the harvest, the beginning of the episode when she goes to the library, she's wearing like that black top that like both the black and white top she wears in the harvest have like perfect cut whatever collars so that the cross sits perfectly like not on the shirt. And I think she looks great. I think she looks very good in black, but I'm also like someone in black.
And the black outfit, she's got those sunglasses when she's like hopping over the fence.
Yeah.
Very funny sunglasses.
I love those type of sunglasses. Now we're going to bring back a question that I haven't asked in a while, but I did at least tell you all about. What do we think Dawn would have been doing in these 2 episodes? Since the Scooby's memories, she did exist in these episodes. Jamie, you first. What do you think Dawn would have been doing?
Oh gosh, she's. I'm trying to think of like what 1997 movie she'd be watching, and I like to think that she's like watching Batman and Robin somewhere. Just really, just living her floaty key life. Hanging out, eating some popcorn. That's my choice.
Right. Kiersten, what do you think?
Okay, so in the move, her mom packed up her Tamagotchi and she couldn't find it. So while they were moving, her Tamagotchi died. And so she's searching boxes. She found her Tamagotchi. It's got the X's for eyes. It's dead in the center of a circle of poop. And she's devastated. She's super mad at her mom. She's also mad at Buffy, even though it probably had nothing to do with Buffy, but it's still probably Buffy's fault somehow. So she's been in her room reviving her Tamagotchi and just really upset over how her whole life was ruined and her Tamagotchi was killed because Buffy couldn't keep it together.
I want everyone to know I forgot to tell Kiersten we're doing this question. I think I texted her like an hour before recording and she was like, how old would Dawn be? Great, got it. I know what she'd be doing.
I didn't realize until just now that it's like, oh, this is they all have memories of Dawn. So I like didn't, I'm like, oh, I misunderstood the assignment, but I'm still sticking with my answer because I was 7 in 1997 and I was watching Batman and Robin and being obsessed with it. So that's what I'm sticking with my anscer.
That's fair.
Rude to remind me how much older I am than you.
Listen, I'm 32. I'm living my best life.
Doug, what do you think Dawn would have been doing?
She's what? She's a 2nd or 3rd grader right now. So
she's 10, so she's in 4th or 5th.
Oh.
So she's struggling through, I think, long division or something at a new year in school, but she is also, because long division is really hard for her, she is teaching herself ancient Turkish in between. She is both learning ancient Turkish, which will come in handy in season 7, and she's also like fucking terrible at long division, and that's the duality of Dawn.
Doug. That was really good. I said she would have. Mine was like less specific. You all had better answers than me. So I said that in Welcome to Hellmouth, the only scene she would have been in would be bringing Buffy to school, and when Buffy is commenting on her outfits, I think it would have been Dawn commenting on the outfits instead, but like doing silly younger sister insults about them, like, "Oh, that makes you look like this. That makes you look stupid. You look like mom," or like shit like that. And then in the Harvest, what did I put? Dawn would have only been in the episode to nag Buffy when Buffy like is trying to leave, when she's trying to like get her supplies that Dawn would have been, and maybe talking about her Tamagotchi and complaining to Buffy about it as Buffy's trying to get her like Slayer supplies and go. All right, what grade do we give these episodes, Kiersten?
I mean, they didn't know who Angel was, and the mythology is very hand wavy, but they tell you what the series is so clearly and so well. They set up Buffy and the Scooby Gang so clearly and so well. I mean, fun, funny. I think they nailed it.
All right, yeah, Jamie.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that for pilots aren't easy, and you got to introduce all these characters, and I just think that they did such a good job of telling you what this show was going to be.
Yeah. Doug?
I hate pilots, and I also like when I tell people to start rewatching, I basically tell them to start with when she was bad and go from there, like skip season 1 in its entirety. And so I was shocked to rewatch this and be like, firm A. Everything is there that needs to be there. I loved watching this. And I am as shocked as anybody that it's an A.
I thought you were going to be like, well, I hate pilots and I hated this.
Why don't you know me? Stop this.
Doug, let's not break up in the middle of at the end of the recording. I give A and B. I give A to Welcome to Hellmouth, a B to Harvest, because even in our discussion, we talked way less about the Harvest. There's like less to discuss.
True.
And like you mentioned, Kiersten, there are a lot of cuts. It's like back to Sunnydale, back to the tunnels, back to Sunnydale, back to the Master, back to the house.
Yeah.
And I do like it, but there's just a lot of that where it's almost like the info dumps are less. It's like we get them without the jokes as much this time. But it is because there's a lot more they need to do. But so I still like it. B isn't bad. All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. Kiersten, isn't this wild? Your first episode was in season 4, and now look at us now. Back to season 1.
All the way back. Yeah.
And Doug and Jamie, thank you both for coming on. We are going to be talking about certain Buffy episodes for their 25th anniversary. And then in June, we'll be getting to Angel. But if you're in New York this weekend, on the 13th, March 13th, come see us at Stonewall for Slayerfest 98's live show celebrating the 25th anniversary. We'll be talking about these episodes and have some drag numbers. And you'll probably watch me get pretend bit by a vampire on stage. And if you like Slayerfest 98, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts. We are at Slayerfest X98 on all social media platforms, TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you want to support us on Patreon, I've been saying this every episode, but I promise this month we are starting season 2 of Harley Quinn for the Patreon. We did a bunch of episodes with my mom where I talked about all of season 7. She actually asked me if we could do a little bit of season 1 after. So we're going to be doing a few episodes of that, and we're covering What If. And the support is much appreciated. And if you want to follow me, I am at Ian X Carlos. Kiersten, where can everyone find you?
I am the president of Ian's Mom's Fan Club. So if you want to join that, DM
they talk to each other through text, and it's very cute. Kiersten, I don't think I told you this, but in our recording for End of Days, I mentioned something you said, and my mom goes, "Oh, I love Kiersten White. Everyone should buy her books," as if like.
I love her so much.
It was very cute.
So speaking of my books, you can find me on the shelves of your local bookstore. I'm on Twitter at Kiersten White. You can find me at KierstenWhite.com or on Instagram at author Kiersten White.
And Jamie, where can everyone find you and find all the podcasts you co-host?
Oh, I am Jamie Cinematics on Twitter and Letterboxd. I love Letterboxd, so follow me on there. And our podcasts are, all the places that podcasts can be found. We for Phase 0, Wednesdays at 9 Pacific time, we are live on Twitch. And it's always a really fun time. We're talking about Marvel, just always talking about Marvel. That's my whole life is talking about Marvel.
And an occasional Buffy break.
Please give me all the Buffy breaks.
And Douglas, where can everyone find you trolling on the internet?
I'm the president of Ian's fan club, not his mother. So if you would like to join that, you can reach out to me at PSCHLARM at Schlarman on wherever. And you can follow me for unhinged ranting about politics and probably Real Housewives.
And sometimes Buffy. All right, well,
Yeah.
happy 25th anniversary, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and we'll see you all next time. Bye.